I thought you had a meeting.
I do, but I chose this meeting over that meeting.
Oh man,
So how
you're
does
gonna
that
have,
make you feel?
it makes me feel great, but you're gonna miss great camera angles and lens effects and smiles and lies.
I'm sure I'll get an update as to what they discussed.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see if this works. It does. Ooh, we can blur now. That's great. If you're playing some music, I don't know. Oh, wait, it kind of kicked in there.
You didn't hear that? Oh man. How about this?
I think that was the training montage from Karate Kid, his best around.
Right.
But it's like playing back here someplace.
Oh man, I gotta work on that. So we might have Max joining us. He said he would like to join.
Max
from Major League Hacking. Britt, nice fella. He's been helping out a lot with the DEI SIG.
Okay.
But they do like CFPs and kind of hacking events for folks. Good dude.
My brain's already mush today. Where's everybody, Crow?
I don't know, man.
Where you at?
I pinged in IRC yesterday, reminded people, doing the needful, man, trying to help inspire and motivate people. We'll give it till 5 after.
That's fine.
Show you my amazing new geese hats.
I can still see the one up on your shelf there. Get more. Did you get any? So now that you're an insider, what's the situation on our plan? Are you gonna get approved or what?
We had a meeting about it, and there's a new general manager. Hey, Max. There's a new general manager, Omkar, a really nice fella, and he is kind of evaluating. There's a couple things that are in flight for funding requests. So I think his first order of business is to get his staff in order. They have several outstanding open recs. So I think he's going to try to get through those. So he has people to help out. And then he's trying to formulate how he would like to position the mobilization plan requests. So we'll see that there's going to be a mobilization plan SIG created, that we're going to rewrite the mobilization plan. Thankfully, 2 of the SIGs already are done and they can just hand them the rewrite. But that, there's nothing. They are approaching. There were several groups after the DC summit last year that put forth pledges to fund parts of the plan. So I think he's just trying to see the state of where things are and how he wants to roll those out to those people and see if they're still interested in pledging. Since the economy's changed a little bit in the last year.
So breaking that down into brass tacks, so to speak, when do we think we're going to hear some feedback on it?
Unknown.
Unknown.
Okay. I would anticipate. I hope by the end of Q2. I don't know.
Okay.
Now, that does not hinder us from doing anything. There's still a lot of great work we can do for free. I'm sorry, for our volunteer donations. But all like the significant part of section 3 was talking about scholarships and grants, and that's going to be on hold for the foreseeable future until we get that funding determination. Yeah.
Podcasting also.
Yeah. And I'm getting, I have a meeting with the Intel team, I think next week, to remind them that we're still waiting on the manager training. But like many organizations in high tech, we've gone through a series of changes over the last several months. And people that may have originally been around to help start that effort are no longer with the organization. So I just need to kind of see where they are with that review and turnover process. But hopefully we'll get that class. My dream would be in June. And then we can actually start to see how we want to adjust the material for the OpenSSF.
Cool.
So that's where we are now.
We've been digging deep into the topic that I most wanted to hear about, so that's good.
Yeah, no funding yet as of yet.
We think creatively about it. The current kind of plan, right, is for OpenSSF really to kind of, I don't know, seed fund the whole thing, right? And then to build more formal industry engagement after that kind of initial phase, right? Because OpenSSF isn't going to pay for the entire, cyber workforce to be built out. The consumers of that workforce are going to have to pay for it. I wonder if within our crowd there's, some intel about companies that might be willing to pitch in 50 or 100K to, I don't know, angel fund round, before the OpenSSF funding comes through, run a pilot on something that's then ready to kind of, launch into production, if you like, with the OpenSSF funding that comes through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any such people. I'd be holding them by their ankles and shaking them until all of their funding dropped out. But I do think it's worth thinking about, if there is like an alternative pathway like that.
Well, one pathway that I think you are aware of, Max, is that the DE&I SIG is going to be talking with the White House. There is I feel a large component of the new U.S. cybersecurity strategy, I think it's section 4, talks about education. So we actually are working on trying to get an invite to talk with those folks. So that is another option, is potential government funding. We did try with the CERT SIG, we tried to access the Tech Sovereign Fund over in the EU, and they were not interested in a upstream security team.
Interesting.
We did not pitch the education though, but I think that funding round is closed.
Generally, like grant funding is not going to come through before the end of Q2. It won't come through this year. Let's be honest. I've spoken and have some contacts over in NIST, which is probably ultimately where, and NICE specifically. Let me see if I can remember what all those acronyms mean with the help of my trusty Google Doc. So NICE is the National Initiative for Cyber Education, and that sits within NIST, which is the National Institute of
Standards and Technology.
Right, there we go. Look at that, and I'm doing well for a Brit here, right?
I know.
All these US acronyms. I know a couple of people there. They're actually opening some grants towards the end of Q2 for broadly like workforce development. But getting those grants as an organizational group that hasn't got a track record of getting grants from the government, super difficult. So typically people will like partner with a university or something like that, where they have a very like strong mechanism and muscle for accessing government grants.
If you can share some details, that there's a new program manager that assists us here in the OpenSSF, Amanda, and I believe she does have a background in grant writing. So that might be because she helped me put together the Sovereign Tech Fund proposal. But again, that we were like right at the last day of consideration that we got that in.
Right.
Because she just
I think usually there's a bit of groundwork and oiling the machinery out there. Yeah, absolutely. I can share some info. I think probably what the folks over there would say is get involved in their working groups. And that's the best way to hear about those grants. There's a grant portal for US government grants. I can't remember what it's called. But these grants will be posted there. Let me look into it and see if there's even like a name for them. It will be coming out of NICE. I'll drop a link to.
Great. That would be useful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. You can't Google NICE, you won't find anything.
Awesome. Just so everyone is aware, I have been elevated to an amazing new role within the foundation. I am now the chairperson of the Technical Advisory Committee. So I'm not exactly sure what that entails, but I know it's going to be a lot of additional new work. So to that end, I'm asking each of the groups I'm engaged with to make sure we have a strong stable of contributors and participants, so that if I am available or I have not available, or if I have conflicts, we can make sure that the group can still continue our momentum, making sure we have leads and people willing to help kind of run calls and help drive the group forward if I am called to other things. We'll just keep an eye out on Slack.
Just gonna throw that out there. Just leave that right here.
But if there are folks that are interested in trying, dedicating a little more time than the hour a week or whatever, please let me know. It's not a lot of work, but and I think I still should be able to do a lot of it, but I just don't know. I know I'll have a lot more one-on-ones with my friends on the governing board.
So let's talk offline a little bit more about what's involved. I think I may be able to help with the SIG. I don't think I'll be able to help as much with the working group as a whole because of time constraints, but I would be willing to try and help coordinate things for the education SIG.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That is very, very helpful. To that end, talking about forward momentum, I mentioned the Intel training, and I hope that we'll get that soon. But today I have two ideas. Thank you, Jay. I have two ideas of things we could collaborate on today. First off is we created a model of kind of how we wanted our content to line up. So maybe we could do kind of a gap assessment or prioritizing where we think we might want to try to find or make some new training. And then I had a request, many requests as part of the OSSNA in Vancouver. People are hungry for a open source newbie class, teaching them how to file a PR, how to get engaged with the community, how you can contribute broadly to a project, not both technical and kind of support duties. So I think that might be potentially a very useful effort for us to focus a little bit of time on. So do either of those ideas inspire and motivate people to want to collaborate a little more today on?
I'm always up for a good collaboration. With the open source contribution idea, other than being in the right place at the right time, is there a reason that got pointed at OpenSSF specifically?
It was just a commentary from the audience. So the open source, it's the open source summit. So it was run by the LF. So they had like 12 little micro conferences, containers and supply chain and OSPO. And many people, especially young developers or people changing their careers, don't know. They know they would like to participate, but they don't know how, and they don't understand kind of some of there's a lot of unspoken rules. So it would be great if we could potentially help try to clarify that. Like, what is a PR, for example? Kind of start off on some basic stuff, give them a couple pointers. If there's other art that exists of good examples, that would be a useful activity, I think. No one came to me specifically and said, "Dear Crow, please make a class." It was just more the sentiment I heard from a lot of the audience, and then some of the keynotes talking about how we need to. Part of our DE&I SIG is how we're trying to pull more people into the trade. How can we make it that on ramp a little easier for them?
Awesome. It's something we're thinking about a lot here as well, because a lot of the programs we run, time and time again, we hit the same kind of issues, which is actually kind of based around, how do I write a good PR? And actually, that's kind of the grounding that everything else sits around, right? From writing good code through to, engaging with a community, through to understanding the standards and practices within a project, and pretty much everything else.
Wow, my Google is very slow today.
You're hacking up this document, man. What are you doing?
30 seconds later, it's done typing. That's cool.
How many tabs have you opened today, Crow?
I guess I need to reboot. Yes. So what other topics can we put into such a piece of work?
Generally, how to get involved in a project. There's a lot of lexicon, I think, that people are not familiar with. I think, like you said, the unspoken rules that are out there, bringing them into the light and then let people understand what they are and why is a good thing.
And it's very different from project to project. Hi, by the way.
Hi, Ollie.
I mean, there are some projects that are truly open where you operate by merit, but there are some where a few people get their position because they're employed, and that has a very strange balance for the rest of the project. So it's hard to you can write a guide on how to sniff around and be patient and learn. But it's easier to write the do nots. You do not enter a project and say, hey, I represent this very, very huge global company and I want to do it this way. That way you get kicked out, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I guess that probably points to a cultural topic, right?
It is
unwritten rules, the do's and don'ts of the open source community. That would be a great thing to crowdsource, actually, what people feel like they are.
The powers and problems of meritocracy, right? The proof course. That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
I mean, I think like a cheat sheet around setting up a developer environment is probably one of the other really, really top things, right? If you think about people who are trying to get into open source for the first time, they're probably not people with a lot of, I'm going to say, enterprise software development experience. They probably have more of an academic background. They've probably been sort of solo coding. When they do a project, they open their IDE and hit Command N or Control N, whatever flavor you have, and they start from a blank doc rather than having to navigate a big code base. I think there's definitely something to that, right? Like how to navigate a big code base.
Yeah.
Developer environment.
And on the don't list, I would add stuff like, yeah, you have all the source code and you can fix stuff in the source code, but it wouldn't be nicer if you learn everything first, because what you're trying to do in this PR, you can do by configuration. So we won't accept your PR, and don't get upset. That's fairly common, that just because there's source code, people go in and fix stuff with source code, and then they have to maintain. If they do it internal in a company, they are suddenly maintainers of that. And I don't know, it's kind of a hard balance to handle.
This is a great list. Starting, any other ideas to put on it so we can start potentially dividing and conquering a little bit in the future weeks?
My other two would be one on like tools of the trade, right? You know, GitHub. Yeah, let's put some other open source tools in there. Why not? And then you know,
and a touch of cosine by accident. When you speak about Git, you could add a section on signing your commits with cosine, and yeah,
definitely. I would probably need to be careful to state that
overdo it.
other code other code repositories are available as well, right? You know, even the term PR isn't used in GitLab land. They actually have a much more sensible term for a merge request. They call it an MR because it's a merge request. You're not really pulling anything, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, the other one after the tools for me is the process, right? You know, you what are issues, what are projects, what are the different roles, what are the steps involved, when does a PR come in, what's the review process? Without getting too much into it, but teaching someone a CI/CD pipeline, because that's probably overkill.
Abhishek.
Thanks. Maybe there are also some common features, right, that folks don't. For instance, looking at the issues for easy first issue, looking at the contributing.markdown for instructions on how to build and create your PR. So there are some common things that most projects would do, and novices won't know how to look for them. Make sense?
It does.
I think there's probably a bit on what generally are good first issues, not just things that have the flag for good first issue against them, right? But improving documentation, you know, adding some testing. They're typically things that people are always looking for.
We had one person in Camilio that came in with like 200 commits fixing spelling errors in code comments and stuff like that. Very non-intrusive, but suddenly a lot of changes. And we love him for it.
That sounds like someone who won Hacktoberfest.
Possibly, but
Removing
helping out with
double
documentation, as you try to understand the source code, if you add documentation in a PR, people will help you to, if you misunderstood, people will explain to you in that PR so you can write a proper text, and then you learn something new.
Same with testing, right? Testing's the next step of that, really. If you're able to
that would be beautiful to
good
start
tests
with.
around people's code, then you are truly understanding it. And if your test conditions are wrong, people can explain in more detail, you know, the inputs.
And they're happy for you to do the job and continue with your PR. So that's very good. And you learn on the way. Yeah, absolutely. How to sneak your way into an open source project. Those are good tips.
Any additional ideas off the top of our heads here? This is an excellent list.
But could be advice for the people in the project on how to help people get on board. I think one thing I like is like here in OpenSSF to have kind of open hours meeting where we meet the developers and just bring up your problems, because we can't handle them every time of the day, every day. But if we set up a scheduled meeting time and invite people, then we can certainly do that. But also when people propose changes, don't just write something really hard saying you're stupid, fucking, this is not right, go read the documents, damn. You will never see that person again.
That was my very first experience, RTFM.
It was when I joined Asterisk as well. And then I asked for the documentation and they said, it's in the source code. Over a weekend, I read all the source code of Asterisk and produced a wiki that is still around with all the docs. Then I said, well, I read all the docs and I have them here. Can you please answer my questions now? So that's how I sneaked into Asterisk.
I think that also would be another good idea, is providing advice for veterans on how to encourage people. I think that's excellent.
Exactly. You don't find a new maintainer by mailing out to a list after being stupid with everyone and saying, I need a new maintainer. No one dares to step forward and help you.
So would anyone have time in the next 2 weeks to maybe take a look at this outline and think through it like it's a course, and start to maybe slide stuff around, kind of how it would be presented logically maybe, and just to see if we can.
What is the expected output here? Sorry, I joined late.
So
another thing.
There's been many requests to create a open source for newbies class from this the education SIG. So we think that would be a great companion to our secure coding fundamentals class, and then some of the other ideas we have as part of this project, the SIG. So we're kind of brainstorming on the syllabus, so to speak. We're kind of talking about ideas that would be good and interesting to have in this course and valuable to these new learners.
But how much time do we expect the new learner would spend? I mean,
yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. What do we think? I
think it's very, very limited, because you end up, because something doesn't work as you expect. It's not like you're looking for a career. You happen to end up here and you're frustrated because the open source project doesn't behave as your vendor. And that's when you need a class. How do you get these people to do the stuff you need to get done? Or help yourself to get the stuff done.
So do we think this could be a instructor-led class? Is it more of a checklist? Is it a blog? What do we think? What form do we think best would serve this content?
I think these people don't get the funding to go pay for this class. I think a series of very easy to digest YouTube videos would be perfect with the right sender. And combine that with a few blog entries where people tell their war stories about how to and how not to.
The challenge that people have when they're accessing educational material on YouTube is that you can't really search it.
Yeah.
Right. If you specifically want to get into
You're too old, Max. Now with AI, you can search anything.
you can, but the people who can search anything with AI are already contributing to open source, right?
Yeah.
But I think the combination of
I mean,
some
that's
video
why you need
tutorials-
blog entries that points to the video, and combine that with a few videos with interviews. I mean, meet some open source people and ask how they got into this.
So Max, you want to finish your thought, and then Randall?
I think my thought was very similar. I think blog post, granular content, so people can dip in and out of topics they want, and yeah, perhaps some story like YouTube type videos is always good as well.
Randall, hello. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been having to deal with a lot of paperwork, and I have to deal with lawyers, and I have to go to LA at night, and then coming back, the construction gets me. So sometimes I don't get home till like 2 in the morning, and then I get up at 5. So yeah.
Which,
Anyway, I was gonna mention that lawyers suck, but no. Apart from that,
I want to note for the record, I work with a lot of very nice lawyers.
well,
In case they're watching.
are you
no.
requesting us to add that note to the meetings notes?
I do.
Anyway, what I was gonna say is LF has something called express trainings that are circulated throughout the community. That might be that is an official class format that we have. It is kind of a newer class format that we have. So that might be something
Okay.
that you could consider. The other thing I was gonna say is that we do have a lot of this is about the newbie course, right? Crow?
Right.
We do have some trainings already that kind of get into that. Most of them are free. So I'm pretty sure that we could talk to Tim about putting a class together, or if you wanted to put a class together of what we have. I haven't checked what we have, so I can't tell you how good it is, but that is definitely a option. I know we have like an intro to Git class, we have an intro to Linux class, we have like a kernel's fundamentals class, which is starting to get really not beginner, but I don't know. That depends if you do Gentoo or not, I guess. But it just, yeah, like we do have material on this that we could get that's already in LF. Just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another interesting idea, is we could potentially synthesize all those ideas into like a cohesive kind of learner journey. If you're new, you should take these classes, read our awesome new blogs we just wrote, watch our specific videos.
We kind of have that. It's kind of like the intro to intro to Linux path, but it's not, it kind of towards the end gets a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And like it starts to be not really beginner at all. But we have like intro to Gits in there, intro to Linux. I think we have some intro to networking, but I'd have to check. But yeah, you know how some of that stuff has been there for a very long time and needs finagling. So all I'm saying is that there's definitely stuff to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. But I mean, if you look beyond this OSS for Newbies class, a class that people would actually spend hours on and maybe pay for, is how do I create an open source project? If you're in a business and you want to learn how you start an open source project, that would be a class that people would spend, 16 hours in 3 days on and possibly pay for. But that's a whole different angle.
Agreed. Crow, was the point here to do it like from a security point of view, like a newbie class or is just like a newbie class in general?
Well, everything I do has security from the very beginning, Randall. So of course there'll be some security things, but I think the initial focus is to cast a wide net as we are trying to encourage people to take up this career path and get engaged with open source in general. Give them the basics, and then also from the basics, help them and give them instructions on how to do it securely from the beginning.
Fair. I like that.
But security for beginners is something that I'm trying to spend time on here because of the new Cyber Resilience Act here in Europe, where I'm getting more and more questions about what do you mean here? Everything has to be encrypted, everything has to be authorized, everything has to be confidential. What does it mean? And there will be enormous demand for the basics here. Not discussing TLS bits and bytes, but the basics of TLS with mutual authentication. What does it do? And why is a TLS proxy a problem? I mean, going back to basic asymmetric cryptography. And then, I mean, the TLS has been around, but the software signing part that comes now with signing all the artifacts, signing all the containers, signing the SBOM, that will be required lots of training. And that's where OpenSSF is really needed, I think. Especially since we turned a lot of things upside down with the way cosign produce certificates that expire before you have them.
Yeah, I get to reboot after this call. This is terrible.
Try and take
I
notes.
try to see what you write, but it's not real time. Yes, I think that's a big challenge for OpenSSF to try to go hand in hand with what's happening in other projects like Salsa and everything, and produce the training, because that's going to be such a huge need.
And that is a slightly different topic we have not touched on yet with this group. Is I think that is another worthwhile effort for us to help talk to groups like Salsa, who might already have training or they might not. You know, how can we help them and get that baked into a larger curriculum? I know that the open source security incident response team, if it ever gets funded, will be approaching this group for some assistance in some coordinated vulnerability disclosure training.
It doesn't mean that, I mean, this group shouldn't have monopoly, but at least keep an eye on terminology use and where you introduce some shared concepts. So we introduce them the same way. So we don't have 10 definitions of a X509 certificate.
So back to my question, is anyone interested in trying to maybe more logically organize this rather than a stream of thought series of notes, to see if we might have a little bit more order and structure, and then maybe think about different ways we could deliver this?
I'm happy to have a first pass on that. I'd love if we could point somebody on the LF training team towards it as well, to start like mapping in where there is already content, and then we already start to get to where are the gaps kind of view.
I give Randall an action item.
Yep, I can do that.
Randall is part of the LF training team now.
Not manager.
Oh, so he has like authority.
Yeah. I got 4 people under me that don't listen to me at all. But that's another meeting.
But yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, Max, is to tie in wherever possible. We have existing artifacts.
Yeah.
We don't have to make it all, but if we can at least refer to it and federate out to where it's useful, if there's better art, I'm all for that.
I'm sure we've all got a couple of, blog posts, YouTube videos, books and things that we point newbie friends to anyway, right? So we can start to map those in after the LF kind of formal curriculum and stuff. Then it starts to become a resource without having to build anything.
Well, and another output of this SIG was supposedly going to be a application security, a secure development podcast. So we had requested funding for that to get some equipment to facilitate the editing. And then
What happened to our plan, if you don't mind me asking?
you need to go watch the video.
You need to watch the beginning of the video.
Yeah.
The new managing director, Omkar, is kind of considering how he wants to move forward with the, there are 4 of the 10 streams that have active work. So he's trying to figure out how to connect those plans with the pledgers and just overall kind of what his strategy is going to be for requesting and trying to get these things funded. So TBD still.
Okay. At some point I have to update you with the SKF update.
Oh boy, we love SKF too. And wouldn't that be great to point our new open source users into some actual secure coding lab exercises?
Well, that's coming along great. The thing about it is there's a lot of talks right now as to how the delivery is going to happen. So
Through the internet.
Yeah, of course.
Duh.
One of many ingredients. It's also helpful if you have a computer, because it doesn't really
Delivering
work
over
well
fax is so boring. Yeah.
yeah.
It's too easy to hack the fax machine. Denial of service attacks, very straightforward.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry for that.
But yeah, no, but as I said, there's talks about whether or not it's going to turn it all into LF or the SKF platform is going to stay independent. It's the latter is more likely. So yes, and there's a lot of things that we could do there. Because the platform is very open. So I know that we talked with Avishai about different possibilities in the past and whatnot. And now that we're actually slowly getting there, we could do a lot with the SKF platform. But obviously we'd have to loop in other parties involved. And yeah, we'd probably end up in a similar boat as the plan.
I am open to discuss.
But yeah, no, we could definitely discuss. I'll after this week, I'll be able to update you because we officially everything kicks off at LF June 1st. So
cool. Well, let's do something then because I'm going on vacation Thursday afternoon.
Nice.
All right. Any additional thoughts? So I appreciate it, Max. He's going to take the first pass and trying to massage us into something a little more coherent. And
I'll do that most likely next week. I'm on vacay for a couple of weeks after that, so that should be a good point to hand it on.
Excellent.
And you can find me, Max, on Slack.
Fabulous. Thanks, Randall.
All right. Any additional thoughts or items we want to discuss today? At some point in the future, I would like to circle back to our model and see where we have additional coverage of content or gaps and see if there's another area like this OSS for newbies that we might want to try to focus some attention on. But not today. That's a longer than a 15-minute conversation. All right, folks, I appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you for the very engaged conversation. Excited to see how well this is filling out and looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Same.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yes. Bye.